One of the wildest stories ever involves the Cold War, astronauts and cosmonauts, and Conway Twitty, more specifically Conway's song Hello Darling.
Just to know it means so much to me.
Conway wrote Hello Darling around 1960, and apparently he didn't realize just how big of a song he had written, because it would be 10 years later in 1970 before he would record it. And in June of 1970, it went all the way to #1, and it spent 4 weeks there. Hello Darling became one of Conway Twitty's signature songs and a standard in country music. Now you might be scratching your head and saying, well, what does that have to do with cosmonauts, astronauts, and the Cold War? Well, in the summer of 1975, NASA had a plan. It was a project called the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project. It was going to consist of 2 crews, one Soviet and one American. The 2 crews were to dock in space, shake hands, exchange gifts, and do some experiments together. And this was a big deal, because since 1947, the United States and the Soviet Union had been in the Cold War. And to oversimplify it, the Cold War was basically a big rivalry. It was a clash of ideologies of capitalism versus communism, and the 2 countries were pretty much trying to compete for who the world power was going to be. Arms races and space races. But luckily by 1975, tensions had begun to ease between the United States and the Soviet Union. So the Apollo-Soyuz test project was really going to show the people that, hey, the United States and the Soviet Union can work together. And this would mark the first time that the Soviet Union and the United States did work together on a space project. Now let's get down to the men of the mission. The Soviets chose cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, and the US had astronaut Thomas Stafford. Now Thomas was an Oklahoma native, and he wasn't just an astronaut. He was also a really big Conway Twitty fan. And since part of this mission would be to exchange gifts with his Russian counterpart, he thought what better gift to give him than some good old Conway Twitty. But Thomas had a problem. He knew that Alexei wouldn't be able to understand what Conway was saying. So Thomas calls up Conway Twitty himself. He told Conway about the mission and what he wanted to do, but told him that it would only work if Conway could cut the song in Russian. At first, Conway thought that it was a joke, but he soon realized that Stafford was being serious. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Conway got to work immediately. He employed the help of a Russian-speaking professor from the University of Oklahoma, and the professor helped Conway translate Hello Darling into Russian, and helped Conway with the enunciation for the recording. And on July 15th of 1975, Conway Twitty went and watched the rocket carrying Thomas Stafford in the Russian version of Hello Darling take off. 2 days later, the 2 spacecrafts docked. Stafford and Leonov greeted each other with a handshake and exchanged gifts. They then played the record of Hello Darling in Russian.
Привет, радость, что за встреча? Как время летит.
And the best part of all is that there was a live transmission, so Conway was able to watch it happen. This was a huge moment for the United States and Russia, and for Conway Twitty and country music. Stafford, who also had once flew closer to the moon than anyone had ever done before during Apollo 10, retired that same year in 1975. He and Leonov kept in contact and remained friends for the remainder of their lives. And on the 40th anniversary of the mission, Leonov traveled to Oklahoma and shook Stafford's hand once again. Conway Twitty, of course, went on to be one of the greatest country artists of all time, and he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1999. Let me know your favorite Conway Twitty song in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell. I appreciate y'all.